C.E.C. class, Joshua the chapter 1 through 5. Entering the land by faith. Entering the land by faith. After the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord said to Joshua, the son of Nun, Moses, my aid. Moses, the first abandoned child mentioned in the Bible. Moses, whose name means drawed out. Moses, the shepherd. Moses, the songwriter. Moses, who knew in advance the day of his death. The Lord assured that the man that Joshua had high respect for, the man whom Joshua would not move to the left or to the right without consulting him first. My servant Moses is dead. Joshua, he will not come back to you. I, the Father, who led him, Moses, I am with you, Joshua, to exalt and to encourage. You are in your lane. You are not in your self-will. This is, Joshua, my will. Verse 1. Now arise and go over the Jordan, you and all these people, into the land I am about to give them, from the wilderness unto this Lebanon, and as far as the great river, and all the land of these 31 kings, and the great sea shall be your territory. Verse 4 describes precise territory of the land God gave to Israel, the exact boundaries, the material blessings, the land and rivers. Verse 5, with a promise, I was with Moses. I will be with you. I will not leave you. When you come up against these 31 kings, I will not forsake you. Chapter 2. This great leader did not send 12 spies, for he had learned his lesson. He sent two that were strong in faith. He did not let it be known openly. He did not give place for doubt. He became wise because of his past mistakes, and two went in secretly to view the land, and especially the city of Jericho, which was the city that was close to their planned military crossing point at the Jordan River. Listen, Jericho was a small but well-fortified city in Canaan. This was a strategy with a specific meaning. For this great commander and the generation of faith were instruments in God's hand to punish the 31 kings that refused to repent. And this time period that was given to them was over 400 years. They had received the 31 kings, the testimony that the God that Moses talked about in Genesis, the God that introduced and worked power through him in Exodus, the God that made himself known in a priestly way in Leviticus, the God that dealt with his own people in the time of Deuteronomy. They had heard about this God's testimony. And to prove that this God is not a terrorist, if they would have done like Rahab, they would have been saved like Rahab. Chapter 3. Early in the morning, Joshua and all the Israelites went to Jordan, where they camped before crossing over. After 3 days, the officers went throughout the camp, giving orders to the people. When you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord, your God, and the priests carrying it, you are to move out from your position and follow. Now, the generation that was preserved for about 40 years in the wilderness are now the generation of faith, and it was time for their journey by faith. And the Lord said to Joshua, today I will begin to exalt you in the eyes of all Israel, and they may know, so they may know that I am with you as I was with Moses. That was in chapter 3, verse 7. Chapter 4. On this journey, Joshua leaves a monument, a tribute, a memorial to chosen 12 men. He chose 12 men, verse 2. He chose 12 men from among the people and told them to take up 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan, from right where the priests were standing, and carry them over with you and put them down at the place where you stay tonight. This wise military leader wanted victory for his by faith family. He also wanted those who were their children now. He also wanted those who were their children now and their children to come, not to forget that they crossed over this great river called Jordan by faith, by believing in the God that led them across the Red Sea, by believing in the God who led them through the wilderness and gave their fathers the ability to cross the chilly great river called Jordan. Chapter 5. This great military leader made a radical move. In chapter 5, verse 2, the Lord said to Joshua, a radical move. Make knives and circumcise the Israelites' men again. Verse 4, this is why all those who came out of Egypt, the men of military, died in the wilderness. All those that came out have been circumcised, but the men born in the wilderness during the journey from Egypt had not. A radical move. So while they were vulnerable, verse 8 in chapter 5 says, the whole nation had been circumcised. All the men of war, had been circumcised and remained in their camp until they were healed. Their flesh had been cut on. They were in a position of discomfort and soreness. They were vulnerable. They were open to the city of Jericho, which knew that it was about to be attacked. They was open to the rest of the Canaanites, who knew that by faith Israel was marching in, who were their enemies. But the new generation of Israel learned not to trust in the strength of their arms, learned not to trust in their spears and their swords. They learned not to trust in military strategy. But while they were in a vulnerable state, they trusted that God would fight for them. This is the way they entered into the land, by faith. My pastor used to teach me, the way a thing start is the way that it will end. If it start right, it'll end right. They came into the land. They were up against 31 kings, not counting all the other substations, cities, and towns and communities that were against Israel. But they came in there not with sword, not with spear, but trusting in the power of God. This, I'm going to give you a secret, is what made Joshua great. Not that he was a mighty warrior with a sword. Not that he was a mighty thinker as a commander. But even while we study, you will find out that he did have a strong arm and he was a wise thinker. But what made him a great leader is that he would trust a great God. And he conquered not by might, not by power, but by faith in the Spirit of his God. Our next lessons, and this was a real battle. These were real battles. A secret, it took them about 7 to 10 years to conquer. But remember, not only were they coming in to obtain their inheritance, but they were also the weapons of God that he was using against those 31 nations to punish them for not doing like Rahab did. Y'all who read the Bible. Not doing like another group of people did that we're going to learn. Surrendering to God. As Paul said, I fought a good fight. I kept the faith. Our next study is from chapter 6 through chapter 12. From chapter 1 through chapter 5, we entered into the land by faith. We don't know how God gonna lead us, but we trusting in him that he's gonna do it well. He does not give out the strategy every minute, but it is just like it is said in the prayer, day by day. Y'all don't hear what I'm saying. But we're going to trust his decisions. We're going to trust his timing. We're going to trust his method. Don't care how strange it look. We coming up against a fortified wall by marching. Not with swords, but with a box that's carried by 2 poles. Not with soldiers in front, with preachers, with prayer warriors, and not with armies behind them, but with worshipers. Y'all don't hear me. Lord, I thank you. But we're going to conquer by faith. Our next study is chapter 6 through chapter 12. Conquering Canaan. One nation against 31 kings. 31 kings. And each one of them represented a nation. And a nation is not 10,000 people. A nation is not 120,000 people. It's millions. One nation came up against 31 kings. But when God is for you, the whole Canaanite world can be against you. And you will still stand. The next study, chapter 6, verse 12. Conquering. That's why Paul said we are more than conquerors. Conquering Canaan by faith. We have come this far by faith.